Hey, it's Dr. John Terry, the Black Belt Leader, and welcome to the Black Belt Leadership Podcast, where each week I'm giving you tips, tools, insights, and resources to help you become a better version of who you are and what you do as you discover, develop, and deploy your own Black Belt leader within. Hey, this week I want to go back in time to around the year 520, and I want to start with a discussion about an ancient prophet from Hebrew history, and that was the prophet Zechariah. Now, Zechariah lived during the reign of Darius the Great. If you don't recognize the name, Darius the Great was the king of the Persian Empire during what was probably the zenith of their time as the dominant force controlling most of the known world. Now, Zechariah began his prophetic career around 520 BC. His primary mission, his primary focus was to encourage the Hebrew children to rebuild their temple. Now, the Hebrew temple had been destroyed during the Babylonian invasion of Israel in 587 BC when the Israelis had been taken captive by the Babylonians. Now, again, if you are a history buff, especially when it relates to Jewish history, you know that Zechariah is revered as the 11th of the 12 minor Hebrew prophets. But as we go back to the story, I want to lean in on a quote that Zechariah shared that today has become a colloquial phrase. Now, he was encouraging the children of Israel to pursue their efforts to rebuild what later became known as the Second Temple and to reestablish a central place of worship for the Hebrew people. Now, Zechariah shared an admonition, and as I said, it's become a colloquial phrase you probably heard, but maybe didn't understand and know its origins. Here's the quote: "Do not despise humble beginnings." Or as we say here in the South, don't despise a humble start. Now, to me, this is a reminder that a modest start doesn't necessarily preclude a spectacular ending. It's also a reminder to me that the journey going from a modest start to a spectacular ending is full of wisdom and knowledge and lessons to be learned. So to me, it's a reminder in not despising those small beginnings, those humble beginnings, that there is valuable things to be learned and experienced along the way. But I think if we could sum up that phrase, don't despise humble beginnings, simply put, where we start doesn't necessarily dictate where we're going to end up. Let me give you an example from more recent history I think will illustrate what I'm talking about with this point. I want to go back to the 1930s. Now, in the 1930s, I'm sure you're familiar with the fact that the world was in the throes of the Great Depression. The stock market had collapsed, and we'd literally seen a global collapse of banking and investing, not only just in the United States, but literally around the world. Europe, even though they were miles apart by oceans that separated the United States from the rest of the world, Europe was also significantly impacted. There was widespread unemployment. There was financial hardship all over Europe, including the British Isles. But in the midst of all this global upheaval that was taking place, all the turmoil, all the stress, all the anxiety, in a small British area, a young boy by the name of Thomas was born to a small middle-class family. Now, Thomas's dad was a factory worker and his mother was a cleaning woman. As a young lad, to help the community out and to support his family, Thomas took a job as a milkman. So throughout the day, 6 days a week, you could see Thomas delivering milk from home to home in the community where he had been born and was growing up. Now, Thomas ran away from home at the age of 16 and he joined the military, seeking a better life, seeking more than his modest beginning. For a couple of years he was there, but after a medical discharge, he returned to the land of his youth, and it was there he first got a job as a bricklayer, later a lifeguard, and even did a stint of time working, get this, as a coffin polisher. But Thomas was a handsome man, and at some point, a photographer took notice of him, and Thomas ended up landing a job as a model. Because he was a very handsome and very striking young man to behold, he was dubbed by many of the photographers and many of the magazines and advertisements that were using him in their pictures as a virtual Adonis. He was seen as a reincarnation of one of the great gods of history. Now, Thomas began bodybuilding around the age of 18, and sometime later, it's said that he earned a third place finish in a Mr. Universe contest. But while he was competing, we know one of the competitors mentioned to him that there were auditions taking place nearby for a musical motion picture. Now, Thomas, not to be one to turn down an opportunity to move beyond those humble beginnings where he started, he showed up unannounced, uninvited, and auditioned and got a small supporting role as one of the chorus boys and had an opportunity to appear in what later became a major motion picture. A reminder, do not despise humble beginnings. Well, at this point, Thomas had become an up and coming actor. But over and over again, he struggled to make ends meet because what did he do? He hopped from the big stage to the small screen, only being cast in small supporting roles that didn't pay much. But his first big break came when he earned a starring role in a 1959 Walt Disney movie. You'll know the name when I share it later. And from there, he went on to land several starring roles on BBC television, as well as leading roles in major theater productions throughout Britain and parts of Europe. But the course of his life changed dramatically once more in 1962 when Thomas had an opportunity to audition for a film. And it was there that he was successfully cast as a secret agent working for British intelligence. In the movie Dr. No, Thomas, now known as Sean Connery, went on to star not only in Dr. No, but in a total of 7 James Bond films and became immortalized as 007. And this forever cemented Sean Connery's place as one of the great heroes of cinema. Now, Sean Connery went on from there to enjoy an illustrious career as a leading man. He enjoyed memorable roles in The Untouchables, Dragonheart, The Rock, the movie Entrapment, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and one of my mom's favorites, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. That Walt Disney movie, Darby and the Little People. Sean Connery went on to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award from the British Academy of Film and Television, and a few years later was also recognized with the Lifetime Achievement Award by the American Film Institute. Sean Connery's probably greatest accolade was when he was knighted by Queen Elizabeth in the year 2000. Again, don't despise humble beginnings, because where we start doesn't dictate where we'll end up. We saw that in the life of Sean Connery. Now, another individual that started with small beginnings was Abraham Lincoln. If you don't know his story, let me share it with you. Abraham Lincoln was born in 1869, literally born in a log cabin. At the age of 9, his mother passed away, and Abraham Lincoln was raised by his 11-year-old sister, Sarah, as his dad worked to provide for the family. Now, Abe Lincoln was largely self-educated because his father had to rely on little Abe to not only help with the farm work around the house, but also to work outside the home to generate supplemental income to help support the family. So as a result, Abe had little or no time to go to school and get a formal education. So the education that he did get, he got on his own. Now, his first love, Anne Rutledge, she died of typhoid fever. Abraham Lincoln, years later, married Mary Todd, and the couple went on to have multiple children, but 3 of their sons died before reaching adulthood. His very first business endeavor ended in failure, and it forced Lincoln to spend almost a decade not only repaying his debts, but his business partners' debts too. Now, Lincoln also understood and experienced failure at a significant level. He lost his first bid for the state legislature in 1832. And later, when he finally got to the state legislature, he was defeated for Speaker of the Illinois House in 1838. He lost the renomination for Congress in 1848, which forced him to return to the practice of law. In 1854, he was defeated for the U.S. Senate, and later on, he failed to secure the vice presidential nomination in 1856. And despite gaining national prominence as an incredible debater for his historic debates with Stephen A. Douglas, once again, Lincoln was defeated for a U.S. Senate seat in 1858. But remember, don't despise humble beginnings. Where you start isn't necessarily where you end up. 2 years later, 1860, Abraham Lincoln won the Republican nomination and went on to be elected the 16th president of the United States. We know from history that Abraham Lincoln presided over the Civil War and he led the efforts to pass the 13th Amendment that put an end to slavery nationwide. Today, Abraham Lincoln, a man of humble beginnings, literally born in a log cabin, is recognized as one of America's greatest presidents in U.S. history. Once again, it's a reminder, do not despise humble beginnings because where we start doesn't dictate where we end up. Now, Curtis Jackson grew up on the streets of Queens, New York. He wanted to become a rapper. He wanted to become an actor. He wanted to become a producer and a media mogul. But to do that, he had to fight his way off the streets and step into the greatness of who he was. Born into poverty in Mississippi, Oprah Winfrey faced a very difficult upbringing. But today, she's gone on to become a media mogul and a global influencer. Dolly Parton grew up in a very poor family in a small house in rural Appalachia. Today, she's one of America's best beloved country music singers, and she's become a highly successful businesswoman. Steve Jobs co-founded Apple after starting with little to nothing. Stephen showed that innovation, great innovation, can come from a humble beginning. You may not know that Jim Carrey, the incredible comedian and actor, he experienced extreme poverty as a child. He even had to leave school to work, and he lived with his family in a van. The author of the Harry Potter series, J.K. Rowling, faced significant financial struggles before her novels went on to become a global phenomenon and making her a multi-millionaire. Again, do not despise humble beginnings because where we start doesn't dictate where we can end up. Now, as you think about the individuals that I just shared, what do they all have in common? Well, one of the common characteristics these individuals have, and countless other individuals just like them who also came from humble beginnings, is the fact that they all developed some valuable character traits. They all developed skills that they used as they went through adversity to overcome that adversity and to step into the greatness of who they had been born to be. And even though many of them faced economic struggles or they faced personal hardships, every single one of those individuals I named, they used the experiences they went through to cultivate resilience, resourcefulness, and a strong work ethic. Let's dive into that a little bit deeper. You know, humble beginnings often involve navigating struggles and setbacks, and that kind of becomes the catalyst that moves them forward. Because when you grow up dealing with struggles and setbacks, what's the outcome of that? It fosters within you a strong ability to recover quickly from future challenges. You know, think about it. People that come from humble beginnings, they learn how to overcome adversity early in life because they're going to face the difficulties of life head on. They learn how to see it, how to face it, how to recognize it for what it is, and they take it on and they conquer the challenge and they move on to what's next. What I love about these individuals that I named is the fact that they were willing to get out of their comfort zone early and they were willing to get out of their comfort zone often. And as a result of that, it continually strengthened their resolve, making them better and better with every single event they overcame. Now, think about it. Having worked harder to achieve success, Sean Connery, Abe Lincoln, the individuals that I named in that little run through of people from humble beginnings, they all learned the value of persistence and tenacity. Now, if you ask me, that's something we can all learn. But having that ability, that persistence, and that tenacity, what did it do? It strengthened their ability to stare fear in the face. And in spite of all the unknowns, being willing to take decisive action anyway. As they lived through and they overcame setbacks, they saw how to achieve a win despite of overwhelming odds against them. And they learned they could take calculated risks, and that ultimately became a part of who they were and what they became. It literally became baked into their DNA. Now, humble people also understand the value of resourcefulness and innovation. Because when opportunities and resources are scarce, guess what? Humble people know how to make the best of what little that they have. If you're a fan of MacGyver like I was back in the 80s, these individuals from humble beginning become real life MacGyvers. They're able to overcome these massive challenges they face throughout life in incredibly insightful and innovative ways. And as a result of that, it fosters creativity. It encourages out of the box thinking, and it enhances their ability to be incredible problem solvers. Because not only are they innovative in their thinking, but these humble people learned how to manage the very meager resources they had at their disposal and use them as effectively as possible. Many of them went on as they began to make a few pennies, a few dimes, and a few dollars. They learned early on to manage their cash flow. They learned early on to prioritize what was important, and they took decisive action when was necessary. They also triaged the little bit of resources that they had so that they could use them efficiently and effectively, but also use them in a disciplined and in a focused way. One of the other character traits I love about these individuals and countless people just like them is this: humble people have a tendency to find a way to do more with less. They also approach life with a greater appreciation for the little bit that they do have. They find joy and satisfaction in the little things in life. These humble people value everyday items and they enjoy life's simple pleasures. They make the most out of every single day and they look forward to living life to the fullest, no matter what life may throw their way. Navigating life's challenges and working hard for success can also lead humble people to a deeper appreciation for what they achieve and, more importantly, what it took to achieve it. Now, these humble people also tend to share another common quality, and that's empathy. They have the ability to relate to the struggles of other people around them that they may be experiencing in the moment. Why? Because they have weathered the struggles and challenges of life themselves. And as a result of that, they have a sense of profound empathy for other people who are going through similar struggles that they've already experienced and overcome. And what I really like about their story is this: their personal story of being an overcomer, of coming from a humble beginning and stepping into the greatness of who they were destined to be. That powerful story can serve as an inspiration to other people. It can help them see that they too can rise above their current situation and they too can step into the greatness of who they are. So deeper empathy can also make humble people much more effective and much more compassionate as they lead other people. Now, why is that the case? Think about it. Humble people understand, they remember their origin story. And because they know where they came from and what it took to get from that humble beginning to where they are today, humble people tend to remain humble and they tend to remain grounded even as they experience even greater levels of success, not only in their personal life, but in their professional life. Keanu Reeves is one of those guys that immediately comes to mind. An individual who started from a very humble beginning and today remains humble and grounded. He hasn't let success go to his head. He knows where he came from and he returns to his roots to encourage people just like him to see themselves as bigger and better than what they see themselves right now and to step into the greatness of what they can become. You got to remember, these individuals, Abraham Lincoln, Curtis Jackson, Dolly Parton, Oprah Winfrey, all of these incredible people that came from nothing, they can look back and they can remember where they started. They can appreciate how far they've come on their journey, and they can serve as an inspiration to others to say, you too can do what I did. Now, one of the other things I like about these amazing people is the fact that they possess an abundance mindset. They are grateful for their blessings. And in this journey of going from a humble beginning to step into something greater that maybe they didn't anticipate on the front end, they shifted their focus from one of scarcity and lack to one of abundance and richness. Humble people having overcome the challenges and struggles of life, often at great cost to themselves, they know what it's like to win. And as such, they've developed a propensity to understand and to cultivate and to build out an I can, therefore I will mindset. That when they see the next challenge and everything around them and everyone around them says, you can't do that, then that I can and I will mindset comes to the front. That mindset is going to attract more positivity and more opportunity in their lives and give them a chance to step into even greater greatness as they keep moving forward. Well, this in turn is going to lead those humble people to become better leaders, as I shared. Now, not only do they have the opportunity, the privilege, and the capacity to be better leaders, they also turn out to be much more valuable as friends, and they tend to be much more loyal and much more supportive as team members working with you to accomplish a goal or an objective. I mean, think about it. They've already faced and overcome adversity. So guess what? They are better equipped and experienced to face it again. And if they're leading a team, having been equipped and experienced through the journey of hard life, knowing what it takes to tackle adversity, take it to the ground, overcome it, get up and keep moving forward, that's the individuals I want on my team. That's the individuals I wanting to help to lead my team and my organization. Why? These individuals, because of what they've overcome and the fact that they're still standing and still moving forward, becoming a better version of who they are and what they do, it fosters a sense of trust and it fosters a sense of confidence among the people that they're around, the team they're a part of, the team they're leading, because they've got a proven track record of success. Remember, they see setbacks as normal because they experienced them early, they experienced them often. All too times, if we haven't experienced what they have, we tend to see a setback as a looming catastrophe when it's really not. So having that mindset of I've been there, done that, overcome, let's do it again, that becomes normal to them. So these humble people, when they face the next setback, the next challenge, the next struggle, whatever it may be, they're going to respond in a much more deliberate, a much more thoughtful, and a much more intentional manner that's going to give the team an opportunity to move forward and see success. That's why they make not only great leaders, but they make great team players. Why? They value collaboration. They actually value that more than personal recognition. Why? Because they had to have the help of others to get from where they were to where they are today. And because of the law of recompense, the law of reciprocation, they want to give back to other people just as others gave to them. Every single one of them, they understand this. One is too small a number to achieve greatness. They want to give everyone a chance to be a winner and to experience what it's like to overcome humble beginnings just like they did. One of the other qualities I like about these individuals, they're quick to take ownership when there's a failure on the team. They'll take the blame and let other people see from that they're taking ownership of that failure. But at the same time, if there's a win, they're very quick not to take the accolades for themselves, but they're very quick to give praise and recognition to everybody else on the team, because together everyone achieves more. So here's the question I want to leave you with as I get ready to wrap up this week's teaching on humble beginnings. How do we apply these lessons to our lives? Well, let's remember the premise from which we started. Do not despise humble beginnings. Where we start doesn't dictate where we can end up. Now, think about the characters that I talked about early on in today's teaching. Sean Connery, Abraham Lincoln, Curtis Jackson. By the way, that's 50 Cent, the rapper, if you don't recognize the name. Oprah Winfrey, Dolly Parton, Steve Jobs, Jim Carrey, J.K. Rowling, and I could go on, and you probably know of countless other people just like them that started from a humble beginning and went on to become a better version of who they are and what they do. And many of them have experienced success beyond their wildest imagination. Now, if you look at every one of these lives, every single one of them took 4 simple steps. 4 little things they did that you can do, that I can do, that we can do starting today to rise from a humble beginning and to step into the greatness of who we are and what we were called to be on this earth. Number 1, they started where they were. These individuals didn't wait on an opportunity to come to them. They looked for the opportunity. They saw the struggles and the challenges and all of the obstacles that life put in their way as opportunities to learn and grow. So rather than waiting on opportunity to come to them, these individuals, every single one of them, took that first uncomfortable step towards answering the question, what's next? And guess what? That's something you can do, I can do. This is something we all can do. We start where we are. Number 2, they used what they had and they honed their skill. Now, I want you to think about it. You and I, every single one of us, we were born and we were put on this earth, and I talk about this often, on purpose for a purpose. We were equipped to fulfill that purpose in the earth from birth. If you're a person of faith like me, I believe God put me here. If you believe fate, wisdom, whatever it was, however you're here on purpose for a purpose, and you have been equipped to fulfill that purpose in the earth. That means that inside of you are innate talents and innate ability, what I describe and I call your own unique black belt leader within. But until you take the opportunity to go within and discover, develop, and deploy it, something I open with every single week, those talents, those skills, those abilities, and those capabilities, they remain undiscovered and unused. But guess what? Again, this is something you can do, I can do. It's something we all can do. Not just starting where we are, but using what we have and honing and cultivating those skills to a razor's edge. Number 3, every single one of those individuals pursued their passion. They looked within. They found something they wanted to do, and they saw a cause, an opportunity, a goal, or an objective bigger than themselves, and they didn't sit by and wait for that to happen. As we saw, they started where they were, they used what they had, but they began to chase that dream and relentlessly pursue it. We saw in Sean Connery every opportunity he had to do something different, to hone his skills. And when the opportunity for an addition showed up, what did he do? He went into that place that he didn't know what to do, but he did it anyway because he was pursuing his passion. What I love about every one of those individuals I named is they didn't sit idly on the sidelines waiting for the coach to say, okay, it's your turn to get in the game. They put on the pads, they put on the jersey, they put themselves in the game, put themselves in a position to score because they went after what they wanted. And guess what? You can do that. I can do that. We all can do that. You and I, we can pursue our passion. And the 4th thing they all did, and again, something you and I can do, is this. They were willing to venture into the unknown. Now think about it. Think about those individuals I named. Every single one of those humble individuals were willing to do something many of us up to this point haven't done in our lives, and that's why we're stuck where we are. They were willing to go to the door, even though that door was closed, and knock on the door. And they kept knocking on the door until that door began to open. And once that door opened, even if it was just a crack, they stepped through that door to discover what was on the other side, the what's next. Answering that question, what's next for them, they found it because they stepped through that open door. Guess what happened? We see it in the history of their lives. They discovered as they walked through those open doors of opportunity, even when they had to open some doors for themselves, that they found themselves walking on ever bigger stages. And as they walked onto those ever bigger stages, it was another opportunity to show up, to show out, to get noticed, and to have an opportunity to get ahead. And as they repeatedly did those things again and again, putting them into that uncomfortable place where growth happens, the end result, they experienced more impact and they gained more influence in their life. So here's my question as we close out this week's lesson, and it's a very simple one. What is your humble beginning? Now, I want you to think about that. What is your humble beginning? What is your origin story? As humble as it is, guess what? You, just because you started from humble beginnings, doesn't mean you got to end up necessarily staying in that situation. Here's the second question. Once you begin to look back and see what your humble beginning is, here's the question. Where can it take you? What can that humble beginning do for you? And what are the lessons that you've learned, if applied and used wisely, can give you an opportunity to step into the next level of greatness in your life? Where can that humble beginning take you if you'll do what others just like you have done? Remember, those individuals, those incredible names I shared, they did four things and only four things to go from a humble beginning to becoming a great individual that today we recognize for the greatness of who they are. They started where they were. They used what they had. They pursued their passion, and they were willing to venture into the unknown. So let me leave you with this. Do not despise humble beginnings. I think Zechariah had that well. Do not despise small beginnings because, and remember this, where you start doesn't dictate where you're going to end up. You know, I think C.S. Lewis probably said it best, and you may or may not have heard the quote before, but if you have, bear with me as I share it for those that haven't. I love how C.S. Lewis did, and it's a great way to end today's teaching. You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. Let me share that again. You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and you can change the ending. So here's my challenge to you. Don't despise humble beginnings. Where you start doesn't dictate where you're going to end up. But remember, the next step is up to you. I'm Dr. John Terry, the Black Belt Leader. Thanks for joining me. Have a great day.